I am joined now by the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Nice round of applause.
Good morning.
There. All right, thank you so much, Governor, for coming here. You've had a busy morning. He's already run 11 miles and served coffee at the Hamlin Dining Hall. So what have you done already?
Off and running.
Okay. All right, let me ask you, a gentleman here said that was the question he wanted to know. Will you run again?
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being at the Great Minnesota Get-Together. Look, it's been a privilege of my life to serve as governor of Minnesota, and we know that the times are challenging and Minnesota's still leading on so many fronts, but I think it's important on these decisions. No one has a right to these jobs, and I think this idea that people stay in them and they continue to say, it's my job or my place, I don't buy that. I don't believe it, so I'm more convinced that I'm out here listening to folks, seeing what they hear. I think it's important if we want to make sure we're defending Social Security, we're defending Medicare, we're defending the most vulnerable, we're addressing climate change. We need to win. We need to win a race.
All right. I want to ask you about your approval rating. Right now, according to the latest Minnesota polls, at 49%, it's down a little bit, from the previous Minnesota poll. But
that's what it is at my house. That's pretty good. So.
Well, I want to ask you about this. But if you look by gender, you have a 60% approval rating with women in Minnesota and a 37% approval rating with men. What is going on?
I don't know. I told Gwen there might be something there. This handsome face, boyish good looks. I don't know. No, I think in America we're seeing some of this. We're seeing a gender divide on. We see a bit of a gender divide, but in all seriousness on it, I think this idea of access to reproductive care, we know that these are critical issues for folks. Things like school meals, things like making sure health care is available for this. And I don't know why such a big divide in this is, but I will make the case on this. We've got a lot of folks focused on the quality of life issues and trying to make that case. And I think making the case to men at this point in time, it's pretty important. They should care. They should care for their daughters, their wives, their moms who are out there. We now have a situation that my daughter has less rights than her grandmother had. And that is simply backsliding in a way that I'm trying to get out there and make that message. So I'll keep pushing them.
Well, the other question that we had from the audience was about women's health care. One of the things that was passed in 2023 by the legislature, the Democratic trifecta, was a Paid Family and Medical Leave Act.
Yes.
This hasn't happened yet. But January 2026, Minnesota is going to see this act that basically will cover almost all Minnesotans, including part-time workers. It's 20 weeks of paid family leave for an illness of a family member, birth or adoption of a child, part-time workers included. I do have to ask you, Republicans say it's too expensive and it's going to be awfully hard on small businesses. What do you say?
Well, that's absolutely false. I think folks here may know this. All but 6 other countries in the world already have this. The United States is in with Tonga and Papua New Guinea and Micronesia, countries that don't have this. It's one of the best things to make sure that workers don't choose between taking their child to the doctor or recovering from chemotherapy and losing their job. We know that in states that enact this, they have higher economic output, they have more reliability with their workforce, and you see a higher quality of life. So the idea is you don't live to die at your job. You go there and you work hard, but if you get sick, you shouldn't lose your house, lose your health care, lose your livelihood. And Minnesota is going to join about a dozen other states that make sure that those decisions are made for you.
Obviously, that is going to be a boost. It's obviously very popular with our audience. You can run on that, and people don't know about it yet. I mean, I think people have been so busy with all the other things going on. But one thing you'll get hammered on the other part, is the fraud that's happened on your watch. Yeah. What's your answer to that?
Look, people are criminals out there, and they're stealing from the state of Minnesota. It's not a victimless crime. They're stealing not just your tax dollars, they're stealing dollars that were meant and are making a difference in children's nutrition, children's health care, housing, climate, those types of things. And I think when we pass these legislations, the goal is to move these resources as quickly as we can, especially during the pandemic. And just like you get the notes from people trying to fish for your bank account or stealing from businesses, they're doing it to the state. I do want to thank the legislature this year. Up until this year, if a if we suspected someone was committing fraud, we had to go through the whole process, take them to court, go through all of that. Now, if we suspect someone is a fraud, we can stop payments immediately and make them prove that it's not. Is it going to slow things down? Yes, a little bit, but it's going to make sure that what Minnesota does, those programs have made Minnesota the best place to raise a child, one of the best places to start a business, and one of the best places to live. We have to protect the program.
And if you run again, when will you decide if you're going to run again?
I think right after the fair, early in September, to give folks an opportunity. The one thing I think people might appreciate on this is I'm shrinking the time that the election season will be. And people said if you could shrink that down to about 3 months, that would be great. So.
All right. If you don't run for governor, will you run for president in 2026?
Well, it's a little early for that. What I would pledge is that I think the country's seeing that the constant chaos, the churn, and the cruelty, maybe some folks, it's not what they counted on getting. And so I think there's going to be an opportunity for a better politics, a politic that works. And I think here in Minnesota, just to be fair to everybody, Melissa's murder in June kind of stopped some momentum that we had there. We have the most closely divided legislature in the country, and bipartisanly, they passed, I think, some of the best legislation in terms of responsible legislating by protecting Minnesotans and protecting our gains that I've ever worked on. And that was done bipartisanly, led in a tie House and a 1-vote Senate. And so I think that type of politics, there's still a place for it. I'm not saying you appease folks if they're going off on restricting rights for reproductive care, if they're demonizing groups of people. I'm not talking about compromising there. I am talking about compromising on bills that we do on transportation. And again, the segment that started here, when people complain about government spending, no one's complaining about that helicopter that rescued those people. And that's how this works. We should have smart investments to make a difference.
All right. I want to ask you about actually, let's talk about that helicopter, because it happened in the 2023 legislative session, a session really that was, guided by 2 extraordinary women that we don't have anymore with us, Senator Carrie Diesick from Minneapolis, and of course, the Speaker of the House at the time, Melissa Hortman. I know this has really hit you hard. Can you share
well,
that?
I think for Minnesotans, and I will just say personally, this one about broke me. I think it's no secret, Melissa Hortman was a dear friend. She was an ally. I said I spent the last 6 years signing her legislation, and the idea is that she was a leader on reproductive rights. She was a leader on fairness, and the Republicans will sit here and tell you this. She did so with humility. She did it with collegiality and never anger. And to lose her and Carrie back together, some of you in all of your jobs you have, there are core people that are there that just make the office work. The same thing holds true in legislation. And the idea that these 2 women are not at the Capitol, it should concern Republicans and Democrats, because these were true leaders who got things done. And so I know someone will step up, but they were special.
Yeah, and I might add, just no pretension with either of them, just really just so pleasant to deal with from the press point of view. It's a terrible, terrible shame. I want to ask you, Governor, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, has its convention here in Minnesota. In fact, the DNC folks and the governor are going to the Indigo Girls tonight.
Gwen,
I mean, you're really working
Gwen
the barrier.
is not. She said, I'm not going to pay to listen to you sing Closer to Fine. So she's not, which I will be doing. So.
All right. I do want to ask you, though, because a question that is really profound for Democrats in this country is the deep divide between progressives and more moderate Democrats. We're seeing it in this state. We're seeing it certainly in Minneapolis. You saw it across the country as well. What is going on? Is there any ability to bring people together? Because you've got divisive issues, including Gaza.
Yes, and this is where, when someone said, is there nothing Donald Trump does right that you agree with? He is unifying Democrats, and so that is a thing that he's doing. He's unifying independents, that's what he's doing, and I think moderate Republicans. And so this idea of these fights, look, depending on what group you're with, I know this will shock some people, there are people at the Capitol who think I am too center, and they said that I'm a Republican. Now, the Republicans here are like, oh my God, that is not true. I know that. But it's how you view this. And what my advice to the folks in the midst of all this stuff, look, I have been endorsed and I have not been endorsed. It doesn't really matter. The people make the decision, not 600 people on a Saturday. Go to a primary. If it were me, get rid of the endorsements. And the idea is, though, the party allows us to coordinate around. But what I'm proud about the Democratic Party, we are not monolithic. We will differ. There is a wide spectrum in there. We don't all wear the same red hat. We don't all agree with one guy no matter what he does, and I think that's healthy. So this idea that there's something wrong right now, there's nothing wrong. We're bringing more people into the party. If we were in Europe, we'd be 10 different parties, but we're not because of the system that we have. We'll unify around it. At the end of the day, those folks will come home and vote.
All right. Well, Governor Tim Walz, thank you so much for coming by. First Lady Gwen Walz, thank you so much for coming by as well. Great to see you.
Legislation and the idea that these two women are not at the Capitol, it should concern Republicans and Democrats because these were true leaders who got things done. And so I know someone will step up, but they were special.
Yeah, and I might